Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
Hello there, welcome to another episode of the Opposition Preview on All for United. We're going to be previewing Manchester United's next game in the Premier League against Brentford in midweek. I am Grant, your host for this episode, and I'm delighted to be joined by my fellow Manchester United contact and great friend, Struan Garvey. Struan, how you doing, my good man?
I've been better. Not a great few recent results, but hey ho, there's another game coming up. I'm all good though, thanks.
And I'm also delighted to be joined for this episode by Dave Lane from Besotted Fanzine and Brentford fan as well. Dave, how you doing, my good man?
Yeah, I'm good. Thank you very much. Just had a very long day back from Liverpool. Just seen my team lose and looking forward to taking out on you lot on Wednesday.
Well, we'll get on to talking about the Liverpool game just very shortly. But as always, please like and subscribe for All for United content. We are live on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and very much other social media platforms as well. But without further ado, we're about to dive into the show because there's just so much to talk about. Dave, we'll start with yourself because obviously you were at Brentford's most recent match with Liverpool as we are recording this on the Sunday evening. Not a great result for Brentford, going down 3-0 at Anfield. What's been your thoughts on Brentford so far this season, but today's game as a whole as we're recording this?
It's been a real learning curve from us. We started off the season so brightly with that famous 2-0 win against Arsenal. We were unbeaten for 5 or 6 games, and we thought it was a doddle. We thought, well, we've waited 1,000 years to get to the Premier League, and it's easy. We're learning it isn't, and it seems to be you can get some streaky runs going. You can get a sequence of games where you don't look like you're gonna win, and then you do, and then you don't look like you're gonna lose, and then you do as well. So I think we're kind of learning. We've had highs, we've had lows, and I think I'd be a liar if I didn't say I'm enjoying it. We didn't come and expect to win every week, but yeah, we got out of the habit of losing as well once, from the last 3 or 4 years in the Championship. So yeah, we're evolving. I think we've got enough points on the board already to be looking forward to another season, but we're not taking anything for granted.
I mean, Struan, Brentford going away to Anfield. Anfield is always such a difficult place to go and get a result for any side, let alone Brentford. I mean, always going to be a tough afternoon at the office for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's one of these games where, coming into it, you do expect Liverpool to come away with a result. But what I would say is the reverse fixture, at the start of the season, the 3-3, was probably one of my favourite games of the season. I thought it was absolutely fantastic, to be honest. And I think even coming into this, as I said, you'd fancy Liverpool, but I think what Brentford have shown us this season is that they are capable of pulling up these big results, and you wouldn't even write them off coming up against a team like Liverpool. You'd go into it and thinking, yeah, Brentford could possibly get something from this. And yeah, it didn't go that way today, but I think they're a really good team.
Yeah, I think in that first fixture, it showed how things have changed for us, really. It's, we weren't making the silly mistakes that cost us the 3 goals tonight. And, Ivan Toney is far weaker than he was at the beginning of the season. So combine the two, we're getting punished, and we don't seem to be able to sort of hit straight back with the same confidence.
Let's discuss Brentford's season, Dave, because they've come into the league and they've really kind of lit it up in many respects. They opened up, of course, with that famous one against Arsenal on the opening night of the season, but a lot of very impressive performances. We talked about the Liverpool game there. They've had a lot of very good results, particularly at home. But what have you made of the season so far for Brentford in a nutshell?
We're trying not to approach the season with fear. We're trying to play on the front foot, and that's especially, I think you noticed that, and I think that's why so many people have sat up and taken notice of us, that we're sort of letting other teams worry about us as much as us worrying about them. I think we're we were hit massively with injuries and then COVID. And I know everyone had the same problem, but we cracked on. We played 2 or 3 games without Ivan Toney, and didn't ask for games to be called off. And although we did all okay in them, he's come back and he's not vaccinated, and I think he's struggling a bit. So although he's playing, a lot of our game revolves around him, not necessarily for goals, but just his hold up play, his awkwardness, his jumping, his aerial ability. He's just, he's an awkward bugger, and he's not quite as awkward. And we need that back. So we've been hit with a couple of things. So we're just obviously adapting to the quality. It's a ruthlessly hard and excellent league, and doing it every week is really difficult.
It's true, and obviously, as I mentioned there, Brentford have had a couple of very notable wins. They beat Arsenal, did that very entertaining game with Liverpool. The one at the West Ham early in the season as well. The one at Wolves. They're a very good side, aren't they, under Thomas Frank?
Yeah, definitely. I think that moment where Thomas Frank runs up to the fan at the end of the Arsenal 2-0 victory might still be my favourite moment of the season. I can't remember how many times I've watched that on repeat. I thought it was great. And I think, it's one of these teams who are really unique. You look at the transfer business in the past and some of the fantastic deals that have gone on there, the likes of Ben Rama, Neil Mopey, Ollie Watkins, all signed for relatively cheap prices and sold for massive amounts of money, but replaced so effectively well. And I think as well, when a lot of teams come up, you often see them sort of sit back against the bigger teams and not go for it. Whereas I think Brentford are one of these teams who can just take on any game. They can try their best, and I think they do really well. I think Thomas Frank is a really good manager as well. I think he's quite underrated. I was looking into his history. I actually wrote a brief article at the start of the season on Brentford and read into his history a wee bit, like his university degree and what he did with Midtjylland, etc. And I just think he's a really interesting guy. He speaks really well. To me, just comes across as a really nice guy as a manager as well, being a really, really tactically astute manager. I think Pep Guardiola gave him a lot of praise as well before that game quite recently as well. So, I think Brentford are just a really fun team to watch.
I mean,
Good.
Dave,
I'm glad you're enjoying us.
I mean, Dave, you see Brentford more than anybody else or most people watching this. What's your thoughts on Thomas Frank as a manager? Because he seems to be a guy that deserves a lot of credit for what he's doing with that team. I mean, they're more than holding their own in the Premier League so far this season.
Yeah, you're right to pick up on him. He is a lovely guy. We were lucky enough to be able to go down the pub and interview him last season, the season before. Obviously, last season was a fully COVID one, wasn't it? And he's exactly as you see him. He's very enthusiastic. Obviously, English isn't his first language, and he gets a lot of pelters for some of his linguistic. He goes, but people always try and sort of ridicule people, but if you actually can listen to what he says, there's a lot to learn. He's a massive football fan. He's a football academic. He's coached the Danish youth team. He's been a coach at a high level on the continent already. He's destined for a very high level. You could say is a higher level than Brentford, but we did a shrewd bit of business there when Dean Smith was manager, and he already had an assistant. Thomas Frank came in, and it could have gone a bit wrong at the time, because he was almost like a cuckoo in the nest, where he was part of the coaching staff, but it was clearly he was being groomed for the next, for the top role whenever Dean Smith went. But it was I wouldn't say a seamless transition, because when he took over, when Dean Smith went to Villa, the starting sequence of results were really, really stinky. But once we got through that, and once we realised that our owner Matthew Benham and the 2 directors of football at the time were wedded to Thomas Frank and Brian Reamer, his assistant, and once we bought into that, and we knew that that he could win games, and we got used to his kind of personality, I think it was only a matter of time. And don't get me wrong, that there are some Brentford fans that have never really liked him, and they've never really got over Mark Warburton leaving us, but Thomas Frank is here for the long term. He'll leave us before we ever sack him. So it's his future isn't necessarily linked to him winning every week, and I don't think that's put him in a kind of like an impossible can't, I'm impregnable. I think he realizes that ultimately the results do determine his future, but even if we went down, I think we would stick with him. It's a really good relationship.
I mean, 23 points so far as we're recording this after 21 games, Stu. And I mean, Brentford have definitely done well so far this season.
Yeah, definitely. I think I said Midtjylland instead of Brøndby earlier on for his career, so apologies for that. But yeah, I think Brentford have done really well. And coming into this season, I sort of fancied them to do better than Norwich and Watford, the other two teams who came up, just because I thought the transfer policy was really good. I liked some of the business he did in the summer. Obviously, Christopher Ayer, I'm sure we'll talk about him later on. Ivan Toney, who broke the championship goal scoring record last season. I think that was more of a question of when he would start scoring in the Premier League rather than if. His penalties are one of the best things to watch, to be honest. I think his penalty technique is ridiculous, one of the best going. And yeah, I don't think Brentford are exactly overperforming, because I think, well, from my point of view coming in, I fancy them to do well. I think we've praised Frank there as a really good manager. The team coming in, I think they're just really enjoyable. There have been some unfortunate things. Obviously, David Raya's injury is a nightmare. Tony, I forgot his name for a second there for some reason. Tony, obviously, having Coven being out recently has not been the greatest as well. I think Frank Onyeka's away at AFCON. Ayer's had a few injuries as well. So there's been a few injuries and ups and downs in the teams. But overall, I think Brentford have done really well.
Dave, let's have a look at the Brentford team, because obviously we've had a chat there about Tony, and he's really the main protagonist in this Brentford side, but they've got a lot of really good players across the entire team as well as Tony, and Mbeumo in particular has been a very good signing this season.
Yeah, Brian Mbeumo, he's a player that really is starting to flourish. He got injured, so he came back fairly recently. He was another one that suffered with COVID during last season, and we didn't see the best of him until towards the very end of the season. He was out for a bit. He came back, and he was something missing. He was, everyone talks about the famous BMW with Ben Rama, Mbeumo and Watkins, and we obviously sold two of those in the summer that we didn't go up. The previous playoff failure to the F word, which we won't use. But Mbeumo's sort of kicked on, and the last 3 or 4 games, I personally think he's been the man of the match. He's really strong. He's fast. He hangs out on the touchline and really cuts in from the in on his left. And he's got a great shot. But his relationship with Tony was the fulcrum. He was like the main man. But at the moment, it really does seem that Brian's the one that we're looking to really to be the most consistent one. We as I said, Ivan Toney's, he seems to be struggling a bit. So hopefully, game by game, he can get that match fitness back. But Mbeumo, I say is the one to watch. But we've got a few there. I mean, you have mentioned Christopher Ayer. He came in from Celtic, big money for us. Ethan Pinnock is another defender who's been ripping up trees, but we've missed him for a chunk. Pontius Jansen, player that you probably have heard of. He used to play for a team that you're not very fond of, Leeds United. He's just signed a new contract. He hasn't been playing brilliantly the last few games, so there's some room for improvement there. And there's a couple of others. Vitali Yanil is a German young kid. Well, young kid, he's 22, 23. We picked him up for next to nothing, £500,000, beginning of last season, and he's been inspirational. He scored one of the goals in the playoff second leg, the turnaround against Bournemouth, and he's something special. He'll be a German full international very, very soon. He's just a machine. He's still learning. Rico Henry is another player. He's I don't like using the term too good for us because he isn't too good for Brentford, but I think he's probably England left back potential. There's probably 2 or 3 ahead of him, but I think he could represent the country given the right circumstances, and 1 or 2 on the fringes. Johan Wissa, you probably saw him. He scored one of the goals that in that brilliant 3-3 game with Liverpool, and he scored the equaliser against Villa last home game. So there's a few, but I think Ivan Toney is the one, and Brian Mbeumo, they're the ones that get most of the headlines.
Yeah, and Mbeumo's had a really good run, hasn't he, Stu? And he scored a hat-trick in the FA Cup recently, and he's in really good form just now, especially with Toney maybe just not quite hitting the heights he was at the start of this.
It's quite funny because Mbeumo is one of these players who I'm constantly thinking about bringing into my fantasy team, and I think he's hit the woodwork more than any other player this season, or at least he's up there with one of the most consistently hitting the woodwork players. But he is a really good player as well, and I think, as you say there, with Toney, being out a bit recently, he's kind of stepped up and done well, and I think he does do really well, sort of transitioning in that sort of front two. Obviously, Toney is more of the goal scorer, but also a bit of a target man, and Mbeumo can sort of move back and forward. I think he's a really good player to watch. I think from a neutral point of view, just when you watch a team, pick up on a few players, I think he's very watchable.
I really like Canos and Norgard as well. I think they're 2 very good players in the midfield as well, and I think they're very good for Brentford in that areas as well. Let's assess the start of the year for Brentford in 2022, because it's been a bit of a mix and match. We talked about the win against Aston Villa from a goal down. They won obviously at Port Vale in the FA Cup, but just coming off the back of back-to-back away defeats to Southampton and Liverpool respectively. How have you assessed those last sort of 4 games, Dave? Because Brentford are certainly scoring goals, but they're certainly conceding quite a few too.
Yeah, if I'm being 100% honest, and I will be, we've not started the year very well. The win over Aston Villa is going to mask what I thought was a pretty average performance. I think any other day we lose that. If Aston Villa go 2 up, I don't think we come back. The fact is that Ings scored what was a really good goal. He really took it well. It's a great through ball from Emi Buendia, who's he always saves something for whenever he plays us. It was just a brilliant pirouette turn, beat Norgard, played it through to Ings. Ings smashed it into the bottom corner. The goalkeeper didn't really have a chance. We did come back. It was a really flat performance, and then we were really patient. We were playing the ball backwards and forwards across the back line, and then there was just one really excellent pass by Jansen, and he broke the lines, and then we got behind. Roslev played it into Wissa, and Wissa took a brilliant touch and curled it into the far left corner. That was that. If we don't score that goal, I don't think we come back. But we did, and we gave us a second half belief, and we went on. And we got the winner. So I think Villa fans were just spitting feathers that they got the lead, but they just allowed us to kind of to get back into it. And I don't think we did anything special to get back in. Well, apart from the move, I don't think it was a special performance. But anyway, we take the win all day long. Port Vale, I guess, was a weekend off. We fielded some of the fringe players, and we got a really good performance. And I thought a lot of positives came out of that. It was a really old-fashioned, away day trip. It was a really rowdy day. It was a good day. A really good performance. And then, as I said, I thought a lot of positives came out of that. And then 2 days later on, we're just rolling over against Southampton, making stupid mistakes, and getting really what we deserved. So. And today at Anfield, we just didn't do ourselves justice at all. We kept it quite tight for 30, 35 minutes, 40 minutes. And then it was just a carbon copy of the first goal against Southampton, a corner that comes in, we just don't defend. And it's bread and butter against, a team like Liverpool who've got, quality even without Sane, without Mane and Salah. I just thought that we should have been a bit braver at Anfield, and second half we didn't really have a sniff. One chance, Mbeumo put past the post, but nothing. The XG stats show the true picture of what happened today. So really, we do need to up it. And a home game against you lot in really so form is probably the kind of fixture we need, and that's not being putting on bravado. I think we'll give you a proper testing on Wednesday night.
Yeah, 10 goals conceded in the last 5 games for Brentford, Stu, and it shows you that they can be got at a little bit of the last one.
Yeah, definitely. I thought when you started reading that statistic, you were about to say Man United have conceded that many, but I think I'm not sure. I've not kept paid too much attention to the defence, but I think that back sort of 3 and 5 of Brentford has been changing around quite a lot recently. But I think as well, I mentioned I think that David Raya injury has probably been one of the most significant factors in that. But as we say, but Man United have not exactly been that defensively solid. So even if United can break Brentford's back line, I'd fancy Brentford to at least get one against Man United as well at the moment, to be honest. But I think Ralph Rangnick and Manchester United will need to look at the Brentford defence, been a bit weak recently, and target that, try and take advantage of the situation.
Let's discuss the game, because it's on Wednesday night, the 19th of January, live on BT Sport. What an atmosphere I'm sure it'll be at the Brentford Stadium, Dave, because their fans really get behind their team, don't they? And it will be a very uncomfortable atmosphere for Manchester United, won't it?
Yeah, I hope it is. That's what we need to. We need that. You're right to say that. I'm sure all your sort of stats people, all your analysts, your players will sit and study our weaknesses, and there are weaknesses. If your players and your squad should be way superior to whatever we put out, and if you get your delivery right, if you get your patterns of play right. There's low-lying fruit to be had in our defence at the moment. Get it wrong and get your attitude wrong, which you are capable of doing. Watched the Wolves game. I've watched both of the Aston Villa matches, the cup game and the league game yesterday. And for all the positives, there seems to be an equal amount of negatives. And on the flip side, we have to identify those. I think it's going to be a really good tactical battle. I think you will probably quite. I mean, it seems crazy to say this, that Man United will be coming to Brentford quite nervous. I think. I think there's a lot to lose for you guys, and it's certainly not a free hit for us either. So we'll have two teams desperately trying to win a game. And you're right. The question was about the crowd, and we have been fortunate that the acoustics in the new stadium are excellent. If you come into the game, you'll notice it. It's been designed to keep the noise in, not like let the noise just evaporate out the stadium, which some of the even Tottenham, there's so much room between the pitch and the stand. The stands are huge. It's impossible to keep all that noise in. We've got a modest sized stadium, and it's been really well designed on computers and then built, and then the acoustics in reality are every bit as good as they planned. So that's what we're looking forward to again. It's like going in there, having a couple of drinks before the game, and then having a good old sing song. And as I said, we're not here for the party. We want to be here for several seasons. But Man United at home is obviously one of the games that gave us goosebumps as soon as we got promoted.
I mean, Struan United come into this game off the back of a pretty erratic run of form, don't they? They lost that Wolves game with the situation with Villa 2-0 up and pegged back to 2-2. Ralph Rangnick needs to find a response, and his team certainly need to put in a performance because the last few matches, from a United perspective, have just simply not been good.
Yeah, definitely. United need to answer back, especially the way the last game went. I think for the first 30 minutes, Man United were really good. Villa kind of grew into it in the second half of the first half, if you will, and then they started the second half better. It looked like Man United were tiring, and then Bruno Fernandes got the second goal, and you think, right, 2-0 up, 15 minutes to go, or 15 minutes to go. A team like Manchester United with the defence, so with that team, they should be able to hold out. Didn't conceded one. Like Tyrone Mings running with the ball from the defence gets through the whole team, just poor defensively, and then it's basically a switch off or one of those moments where they were still taken aback by the first goal, conceded another one a few minutes later. It was just really poor defensively. And then after that, it almost looked like Villa could have nicked another one. Coutinho having a shot to make it 3-2. So I think they just crumbled away. And I think Manchester United need to build on that. If Bruno Fernandes at the end of the game and Ralph Rangnick, said Man United were really good, they just kind of threw it away. And I think they need to build on that and think we were good for a certain period of that game. We did just throw it away at the end. If we can play like that for more than 30, 40 minutes of the game at a time, you can really pull up results, because that's what your Man Cities do. That's what your Liverpools do. They play at that level of intensity for 70, 80 minutes of a game, and it's enough to win them the match. Manchester United need to make sure that they can keep up those levels of intensity, the pressure, because that second goal came from pressing, which is what Rangnick was brought in. One of his key philosophies of football is the pressing. That's how it came about. Fred going forward, winning the ball, Bruno Fernandes finishing. So I think Manchester United need to take the positives from that game and bring them into this one, and they definitely can't take this one. I know it's a promoted side, and quite often a big team at the top should look at the promoted teams and think, right, we'll take 9 points, and then the reverse fixtures will do the same. I don't think that's the case at all this game against Brentford. I think United will be nervous coming into this one. I think being away makes it even worse than it already would be, and I think they need to be at their very best, to be honest.
I mean, Dave, obviously, as an outsider looking in, what have you made of Ralph Rangnick since he's come into the Manchester United job? Because he's been dealt a very tough hand, hasn't he? It wasn't working under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, but, has he struggled so far? Has it been a little bit lukewarm, do you think?
To be honest, I've watched as an outsider looking in, and I thought the guy's a hoax. What's he brought to the? I enjoyed watching you, and I know that your expectations are a lot different to ours, but I enjoyed watching you under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I loved the story. I love the fact that he played for you, and I know as a lot of your fans did as well. And I know he had it was an incredible series of results that got him the job when he came in similar circumstances to as an interim manager, and then he did such a good job. But this interim manager is doing such an average job. There's no bounce. There's no visible improvement from what I see. You've got players that obviously are thinking, who the hell is this guy? I don't think he hasn't lost the dressing room. I don't think he ever won it, and I just don't know what he's contributing at all. He seems a really nice bloke. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure he's an incredible football man. He just seems to be so far out of his depth that it's just, I won't go as far as to say it's embarrassing, but it's another strange decision. On a man that the media seem to be having a crazy loving with, like you'd have thought he was the Messiah, but he's like another Bielsa. What's he done? I don't know. So Man United fans are probably scratching their heads and really frustrated about what's happening. So they should be.
I mean, if you look at the United players, from a Brentford fan point of view, do any of the players kind of frighten you a little bit? Obviously, Ronaldo didn't play the match against Aston Villa. He might be back in play. We don't know as the team news of yet. But what do you make of who could be a threat for that Brentford back?
Oh no! Come on, I'm not. I know that you've got world class players. In several of those positions. You may not be necessarily a great team at the moment, but as a squad, any sort of manager worth a salt will be able to come in and if it's probably a matter of personalities, to be honest with you, is whether you're up for it. I mean, I've seen, like yourselves, players strutting around and having a go at each other. They seem to have got a couple of performances that are better than that. On your day, with the right attitude, with the right tactics, and with the right delivery, you'll beat us. But from what I've seen, I was really gutted that the original game was called off, because again, it was on the back of some stinky results from you, and I'm thinking, right, this is a good time to be playing Man United. You're in semi disarray, and I don't think you've progressed much more than that. I'd say you're in semi disarray still, but with all the ingredients to make an incredible cake every week, it must be incredibly frustrating for you.
I mean, Stu and Dave made an interesting point there about the fact that this is obviously a rearranged game because obviously of the COVID situation that United are early in the season. Do you think that'll have a factor in the match on Wednesday night?
Yeah, I think definitely. I think it must be quite confusing. I mean, as a fan, I'm getting quite confused with a lot of these call-offs and how many points you need to get to reach